to another episode of the Archives with Adam and Fab. This time I have a very special guest, Jacob Stitch Duran. A lot of y'all may know him from the UFC, from boxing, as a cut man. Jacob, how we doing?
What's up, Adam? How you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, I'm not too bad. Just getting my day going with our little podcast interview thing today.
All right.
It's a great way to start it. Coming off some good boxing matches last night and things like that. But as you heard, I introduced you as Cutman from UFC to boxing. I think you did Bellator at some point, right? Or
Tell them all, man. Yeah.
All right. Well, for people that don't that already know that, is there some things about you that you would love to share? Because I know you're more than that, right?
Yeah, I've done all kinds of things. I'm not scared to try anything, and things come my way, right? Like tomorrow morning, I'm flying off to LA to do a body scan for a new video game that they're putting out, and then I fly back as soon as I get scanned. I come right back, and they're filming a documentary on my life, from the fields to the garden, based on the book that I wrote. That's available at Amazon, of course. A lot of things. The cut cream. The CBD cut cream that the company I'm working with, we're going to start going national with that. It's a cream for the healing process of cuts. And, we've used it with bare knuckle fighters, with MMA fighters and boxers, and even my brother that had surgery. Right. So, I've been staying busy, man. Thank God. It's a blessing. Now I'm working with my wife and my daughter and my son, Homie, on doing a little bit more on the social media side. Maybe a podcast like what you do, and share a lot of the stories and talk to a lot of the guys I've worked with. And so, a lot of things have been happening, man. I've been blessed.
For sure. No, medicine, the way it works it's crazy. I used to work in primary care for medical facilities to specialty with spine and sports. You've seen it all. Some pretty gnarly cuts, things like that. It's crazy how much it's evolving over time.
Yeah, it's evolved over. Well, the games have evolved over time. The athletes have gotten better, right? And but the business of working cuts and all that, there's still a lot of edges still have to be filed down, and there's still a lot of guys making mistakes and seeing what other people do and trying to mimic that, and not knowing what the reason is behind that. So education, and that's why I stay busy. I continue to try to educate the people that are working in the game and the fans, so they can understand that these guys are modern day gladiators, and we got to take care of them.
For sure. And once we're done with our thing here, I'll have you link me some drop me some links so I can put that in the description. That way to your book. Once you get the creams and stuff out, we'll have that all in there, and everybody that sees this in the future can, definitely hop on that. Now you say you're gonna get ready to get into a video game, get scanned for a video game. What game is that, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I got to give you more details when I get.
Okay.
As I go along, but it's been like over a year in the process. But they've signed a lot of high-end fighters, retired fighters, current fighters, and I guess from what I understand is, and I'm not good with video games. I've done 3 UFC video games. I don't play them, right? But from what I understand, they're designed to go in every Xbox, whatever components play video games on. It'll be available there. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll know more about it and I'll brag more about it next time we talk.
For sure. I'm sure the process of that's a little different than what you were used to when you made for the UFC games back on the older consoles. Hands, dude, it's crazy. Like all the cameras up and around.
Yeah, it's everything's different now. When it comes to to filming and what have you. Now I've seen the whole transition, and it's insane what people could do with computers nowadays. And about 23 years ago, I put a documentary together called Boxer's Nightmare with this young director, John Barnhouse, and he was like 23 years old, and I knew this much about film, but we never did nothing with it, right? And well, he passed away like 4 months ago, and I pulled out this film as a kind of the dedication to him, and I looked at it, and you know, the thing with this one, Adam, is everything that is wrong in the game. I asked those questions, and I got answers from all these people. And as I look at the film, they're all Hall of Famers. You know, I got Mike Tyson before he got his tattoo. I got Fernando Vargas. I got Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, all Hall of Famers, right? Emmanuel Stewart, Hall of Famer. Richard Steele, Joe Cortez, Mills Lane, Hall of Famers. Mark Ratner, Hall of Famer. Dr. Omansky, Dr. Gooden. I got all these people involved, and yeah, and I see it, and I said, wow, you know. So talking about the new age and how it comes out. 23 years ago, we used the mini DVD, right? It's and you could probably explain to me more, but it's the way I understand it's like 540 megapixels or whatever it is. But anyway, I did an interview with this guy in the UK, Jonathan, podcast like I did here, and I explained to him, because I'm trying to get the word out for taking care of these fighters, right? So I sent him the video, and so he could take a look at it, and there's a gap in the beginning where the first 20 seconds are blank, right? Well, he took that out for me, right? And then at the end, where it says the end, there's a gap between that and then the final words that Mike Tyson said with me, which are great. There was like a 7-8 second gap. He took that out. And then I misspelled Emmanuel Stewart's name. I put a T instead of a D, and he took that out, right? So anyway, going into this new generation like you, he's now adjusting this 540 up to about 4,000, which makes it a high def. And that's with the new age of computers. But guys like you that understand what goes on in what you guys do, right? So yeah, so I once I get that finalized and all that, I'm gonna bring it out to the public so people can see that you know, the game of boxing hasn't changed at all. And even though we have solutions, nobody's done nothing. But now it affects MMA, right? And I was telling a story because I've been gone from the UFC for 8 years. But I run into some of the fighters I haven't worked with in those 8 years, and their speech pattern has changed. So they're into the subjects of dementia pugilistica, right? They're taking all these body shots, all these elbows, the slam and all that. Just so it's affecting MMA also. So anyway, getting to that word where you guys are high tech. Once it's done, then I'll in fact I'll send it to you once we hang up, and you could take a look at it, and
for sure,
you know, and then just let me know your opinions on what I did. So yeah, there's a lot of things I'm doing. I'm just, but the bottom line is here for the safety of the fighters. You know, make this game better.
For sure. I mean, and that's first and foremost. I mean, as a spectator
100%.
myself, you know, I mean, we love watching these guys, but when they get hurt, then we're just sitting there like, you know, here comes the next guy coming in. You know, we still want to watch our favorite fighters, you know?
Yeah. And the thing about it, you don't get to see what goes on beyond that. Right. And because, you know, they get hurt during the fight, their adrenaline will keep that pain threshold to a certain level. Right. But once you get into the dressing room, once you take a shower, once you go home, then that whole pain and mental and physical, they hit you. And it's tough on these guys, man. You know, that's why you got to support them as much as possible. You have to understand the mental game that that they do. As a matter of fact, in this documentary, I interviewed Mike Tyson. I said, Mike, every fighter has that one little thing that nobody has. What's that one little thing that makes them special? Very simply, man, he says, take the pain. You got to take the pain. And I tell young guys that all the time, but it's true, because once I left, they figure, you know, you take a pain in training, take pain in the fights, you take pain with your family, you take pain with finances. They're just, it's a hard road for these young guys. These fighters.
It is. No, it is. It is. I mean, we could sit there and, I mean, we've seen throughout the last couple of years, you know, like Anderson Silva break a leg, you know, checking a kick. And I mean, we've seen Connor breaking a leg, you know, Chris Weidman, same thing, breaking legs, you know. I mean, we've seen John Jones, you know, break a toe right there on the canvas, you know. It's like, it's insane.
I was at 3 of those 4. The only one I was working was the one with Connor.
Oh, you know?
Yeah. But I saw a video the other day with Greg Gonzaga knocked out Krokop. He hit him on top of the head with a kick, And I was working with Crow Cop, and the thing that I remember with him is he was out and he was stiff and he was snoring like, like that. But I had seen that before in fights here in Las Vegas. And the doctors, I learned from the doctors, because first thing you want to do, and the first thing the guy in the UK wanted to do, the doctor, take the mouthpiece off. But the doctors had told me, no, you leave the mouthpiece in, so that way he don't bite himself or anything. And as long as he's making noise, he's breathing. And then once the body will, kind of like a computer, it'll kind of reset itself. And he came to, and he was okay,
Yeah. I mean, did you watch any of the boxing matches last night?
Yeah, I thought they were somewhat boring, bro. And the hype was bigger than the fight,
Yeah.
And I expect a little bit more from both these guys to go at it. I expect a toe-to-toe fight.
For sure. And the reason why I asked was because of, that co-main event, that kid, that 25-year-old kid knocked that guy out. And he's just like, my girlfriend was like, what's going on with him? I'm like, oh no, that dude's out. He's asleep. Like,
Morales, he has that special punch.
Oh, yeah.
I think he has 7 fights now. So some guys are just made special, and he seems to be one of them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, you're right though about the main event. I definitely was expecting a little bit more. I mean, it could have went either way. I do feel like Garcia probably could have, definitely applied more pressure, cutting off Devontae on the ropes. But
100%, and that's I don't like doing interviews of who's going to win, who's going to lose, because none of us know, right?
Exactly.
But, when you pull it out of me, I said, the first 4 rounds I would favor Ryan Garcia, because I thought he was going to come at him aggressively, and he has that speed and that distance to make a difference, right? But he didn't,
for sure.
And Gervonta Davis was, played defensively, but fortunately he knew exactly what he was doing, and that you gotta applaud him for his style of fighting. But as a fan, you want to see chingazos.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Even, you start in Creed, and Rosado was on that card. That was cool seeing him box. I was like, man, I kind of expect a little bit more out of him.
That's a good point. But one thing in the game of life is you can bet anything, but you can't. And Dave is 100% a true warrior. He's been there and done that, and he was always that guy that took the next guy to the next level. And
for sure.
He's 37 years old. But yeah, he was in the Creed movie, and he did a good job doing that.
Oh, for sure. Now I just kind of want to chat a little bit more about you. I mean, sure. we could go on about MMA for days, but I mean, you were in the Air Force at one point. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You're in the Air Force. You owned and ran a kickboxing school, and you were actually one of the first ever International Kickboxing Federation promoters in Cali, correct?
I was the first one. Yeah, I was the first one.
The first one. Okay.
Yeah, Steve Fossum. When I moved, I'll go way back. I guess that's what you're getting at, right? How this got started, right? So, you're gonna have to read the book, and you're gonna have to see the documentary.
I'm gonna definitely do that.
So I wrote a book called For the Fields. Well, let's go way back. So I grew up in the Central Valley of California as a farmer. I was born and raised in a migrant camp, and if you see my birth certificate, the address is CPC number 12, California Packing Company number 12. So you don't get it down any lower in the roots than you do there, right? But
sure.
All my life I was a farm worker, and we worked in the fields year round. In the wintertime we would prune, in the summertime we would pick, and the springtime we would clean up the weeds. And so we always had work as a farm worker, so we knew nothing else. But my game was always to play baseball. And, as I played 4 years varsity ball. And so I walked on to Merced College, which was 9 miles away, a junior college, but I didn't have a car. So I would go to school with friends, and they would leave after school, and I would stay in practice, and then I would have to hitchhike going back home, right? And I was naive. I didn't know about grants. I didn't know about scholarships, about talking to the coach. And so I joined the Air Force in 1972, April of 72. And I always said if I went to the Orient, I would want to study the martial arts. That was during the Bruce Lee era. right?
Yeah.
That's where Bruce Lee was real big, right?
Yeah.
So in 1974, they stationed me in a place called Thailand. And you figure I'm a young, naive little Mexican kid growing up
Yeah.
as a farm worker, right? And they sent me to Thailand, and I had friends that were already there from my first base, like 3 months before me. So they invited me downtown to Banchan to see some Muay Thai fights. Well, I didn't know what Muay Thai was. You know, they said fights. I was thinking it was like boxing, and this guy throws a kick and boom, hits a guy and knocks him out. I said, "Oh, I'm in. I want to study that." You know, but on the base, not knowing on the base they had taekwondo. Well, taekwondo to me sounds like Thailand. You know, if I figured that was the sport that guy threw the kick and knocked the guy out, but it's a Korean sport. So they left, and the Thais took over and transitioned us into the Muay Thai system, and yeah, so I got crew certified, and I got back to the States. I got into boxing to improve my hands, to better get a foundation, right? And then I moved up to Fairfield and opened up a school of kickboxing with just a credit card. And at that time, I worked with world champion Dennis Alexio. If you remember the movie Kickboxer, he was the brother in the wheelchair.
Yeah. Okay.
Until I met MMA guys, was the best athlete I ever saw in my life. Tremendous athlete. And then made the move to Vegas, going on 28 years. And in April, just packed up my family and left, bro. And here I am. You know, following my dreams. And you were talking about the end of the you know, some words of advice. And I always tell people, you know, follow your dreams. They do come true, because I'm an example of that. You know, I'm nothing different. You know, it's just that things have come my way, and I've approached them in a, you know, in a solid way. So
for sure.
Yeah, I've been blessed. I've been in Vegas going on 28 years now.
There you go. I mean, it sounds like it definitely has worked out. I mean, everybody knows who Stitch is, you know, and I mean, pretty much work is in your backyard unless you have to travel. You know, you got T-Mobile Arena, MGM, you know, all that fun stuff. But
well, you know, that was funny when I first moved there. A lot of the fights were in Vegas, but now they're everywhere. You know,
exactly,
everywhere and Vegas. So when I come home for a fight in Vegas, I'm happy. You know, because I get to sleep in my own bed and all that. But it's nice, you know, it's nice to just travel the world, because I work with so many different promoters and so many different events, and they're not all in Vegas. So, but that's nothing wrong with that.
For sure. And I mean, you're dealing with a lot of different mixed personalities, right? I mean, all kinds of people. And that's kind of like one thing I learned is like, not everybody's the same. We're all different, but I mean, we all have, you know, similar stories in some ways. So
100%, man. And you know, you're no different than me, you know, and I always tell people and I'm sure you've gone through this moment, is, you know, that line that we're all scared to cross, you know, nervous, and if you don't cross it, you know, you won't be talking to me. You know, I'm sure you already crossed that line, right? Like, damn, should I do this or should I not do this? And look at you now, you know. So yeah, go for it, man. As long as it can't kick your butt, you're doing all right.
For sure. Now, we started this little podcasting because, I mean, we go to a lot of concerts. We've met a lot of, you know, high profile people, and we like to treat everybody, you know, the same. Because I mean, you're big in like the entertainment world and sports world, but like you're also a human being, and that's like what I was telling you in my initial messages and stuff like that. We like to have just a conversation and treat everybody, you know, like give everybody a good vibe, not ask the same questions, and just make the conversation happen naturally, right? So and that's how we gain some friendships from people that we've interviewed, you know. So it's really cool. It's fun, and we just say, hey, you know, let's just take it up a notch, make it a hobby. I mean, we're not looking to get paid. We're looking to just have fun, you know, meet new people.
And that's what I always tell people is that anything in life, if you do it for the money, you do it for the wrong reasons, right? The money's going to come through your success, and you take it as a business, right? But you got to let it grow, and you got to prove yourself. But yeah, if you do it for the money, you do it for the wrong reasons.
Definitely.
That will come through success.
Exactly. So what did you do in the Air Force? Did you fly?
I was a cop, bro. You know, but you know, I always wanted to be a cop. When I walked down to Merced College, I majored in law enforcement, right? And, so criminal justice, right? And then, but I was there a short period. I think 2 semesters. I went to school, and then but yeah, I volunteered to be a cop in the Air Force. But shit, I had nice jobs because In Missouri, my first base, I worked with the Minuteman missiles. Those are the missiles that, 180 feet tall, and they're in the silos. And so I would drive convoys. So they would have like the warhead, the nuclear warhead, or the missile itself. And we would, all these missile sites throughout Missouri were, some was about 100 miles away, and I would lead convoys, and they would have helicopters and all that shit. So I would fly in the helicopter sometimes, just escorting these weapons. And so I did that. And then same thing in Thailand. When I got to Thailand, I didn't want to go to Vietnam. That was during the Vietnam War, right? But I get to Thailand like 4 in the morning, and all these Jeeps drive up, and they got 60 caliber machine guns on their Jeeps, and guys are in camouflage, and there's guys up in towers with weapons. And I'm, what the hell am I doing here? Not supposed to be there. But we're at the base that had the B-52s and the bombs. Okay. So they would load them up with bombs. They would go to Vietnam. They would drop them, and then they would come back and load up again. So our job was to take care of them. But yeah, so first thing the guy asked, and hey, does anybody play baseball? I said, yeah, I do. And so he gave me day shifts. But he probably thought, yeah, I got a Latin baseball player, third base. I'll take him any day in the days. But I never played baseball. I ended up studying the martial arts for the year that I was there. So
there you go.
Yeah, and then I got back to the States, and I had 1 more year. They stationed me in, of all places, South Dakota, coldest winter of my life. After I was in the tropics of Thailand. But I spent my last 10 months there, and I still worked with the Minuteman missiles, and I could tank. So I'm the guy that, be advised, you got a 10-8, 10-10, and you got a 10-25. So I worked a lot indoors, and then was still on patrol. So I had fun. I'd say it was a blast. Changed my life.
There you go. So are you like, because you're Hispanic, right? Myself, I'm part Mexican and I'm part white. My girlfriend, she's Salvadorian. Are you big into the culture?
Oh, 100%, bro. Okay. I grew up as a farm worker, right? And my parents during that time, during Cesar Chavez, Cesar Chavez was our Martin Luther King, he was our leader, our Gandhi, that type of thing. But he fought for the unfair practices of farm workers. And of course, my parents during that era, they were all in the movement, right? And I remember Cesar Chavez walked from Delano to Sacramento, the state capital, with a whole bunch of people that they would pick up people on the way, and they would go through the back streets. And so they went by our little town, Planada. When I moved from the camp, I moved to Planada, which is, then it was like 1,500 people and all farm workers. And it's 3 miles away, so it was still the same stuff. But they walked through our town, they spent the night, and even my sister continued to walk. So they were always there for unfair practices, for making it right for farmers. And with the UFC, they let me go because I spoke out about the Reebok deal. But I thought about my parents, because I did an interview, John Nash from BloodyAlmo.com. Don't know him, never met him, never read their website, but he asked me if I'd be interested in doing an interview of how the Reebok deal affected the Cutman. And once again, I thought about my parents and the movement with Cesar Chavez. So I was very politically correct, but it went viral, and I became kind of the face of the rebellion. And until now, people you mentioned, the introduction was UFC. I haven't been with them in 8 years, right? But people all over the world stop me and say, hey, man, you're with the UFC. So I don't even say, but I know what they mean, because they do I did so many fights with so many great fighters that when they do reruns, you can't get me out, So that's how I started as a farm worker, and, been blessed to do this. I had school kickboxing, like saying, worked with a lot of great fighters. Javier Mendez from AKA now as a coach, worked with Habib and all these guys. One of the fighters that I work with, Dennis Alexio. So I had that practice when I moved to Vegas as a cutman. I didn't come to be a trainer, though I was a good trainer. So I came to be a cutman, and I started doing pads. I think Mike McCallum was the first guy I did pads for. Guys would hire me to do pad work for them, but I had a job, so I couldn't give you 150% of my time because I had an 8-to-5 job with RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company. So everything worked out, man. And from there, I've grown and grown. And the working with RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company for sales and marketing helped me in my business practices. And then being a farm worker, working hard and disciplined and all that has given me this structure that I have right now.
There you go. No, and I mean it's my girlfriend, she's not on today, unfortunately, but I mean her dad is always working. I mean her mom and dad worked to put her through college, paid all of that off. I mean the guy still works every day, 7 days a week. And I mean that's all he knows. It's just like, when we have a family, is he going to be around to enjoy his grandkids and things like that? But yeah, I mean that's all the guy knows. He'll come home, say hey for a little bit, and then he's back to work. That's all he knows. So it's in the blood, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's the responsibilities, being a man.
For sure. For sure. And you don't see that these days. I mean, it's anywhere. It's you just don't see that anymore. Yeah.
We did it.
So what's that?
So we did it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, unfortunately, times are changing. I don't know what they're changing towards, but yeah, it's something we're going to be seeing. So Cutman, I mean, how did you get to the Air Force, you did, schooling, things like that. What made you say, hey, I want to work on people's cuts? Like, there's going to be all kinds of crazy things. Did you go to school? Like, you didn't do any schooling, like any medical schooling or anything like that, huh? You just went straight into.
I was a coach first, right?
Okay.
I had my own school of kickboxing. Well, go back when I got into boxing in Oakland at King's Gym. I started working with amateur fighters as a trainer, right? And then when I moved to Fairfield, I opened up a school of kickboxing. So I already had training skills with me. So I put those into the kickboxing school, ASK, the American School of Kickboxing. And from there, I was a trainer, but then I managed these guys and I promoted their fights. You're talking about AKF, I was their first member, Steve Fossil. And, but yeah, I would train these guys, but I had to learn all aspects of the game, and being a cut man, wrapping hands was one of them. But in that time, boxing, it was only boxing, and these boxing mentality, now that I didn't know then, is they thought it was a secret. So I remember I went to a boxing match in Richmond, California, and this guy did a good job on cuts. And I went up to him. I said, hey, excuse me, because I'm trying to learn to be a cut man. Can you tell me what you did? He says, fuck you, because I'm taking this to my grave, and you got to learn like me. He walked away. And I felt about this big, bro. And I said, I'm never going to be like this man. So I've done this interview hundreds and hundreds of times, but never thrown his name out, right? So now I go back to Oakland with Andre Ward, that's the undefeated champion. And, his credibility came up. My credibility came up, and he forgot about it. But now him and his son want to take a picture with me, right? So to me, that was a victory in its own. I haven't even mentioned his name till then. He don't even know. But he just kind of reinforced. He didn't change it. He reinforced that I don't want to be like this guy. And that's why I'm here to always teach. And so, that has taken me to a different level.
For sure. No, that's amazing. I mean, you're taking a negative that you got and you're making it a positive.
Yep.
And I mean, that message is, I'm taking that. A lot of people should definitely be taking that message,
Yeah. And then there's another one. There's little messages, little things that'll help you go into the next level, right? And before I moved to Vegas, we did a fight. Dennis Alexio, the world heavyweight champ, did a fight here in Las Vegas, and me and my three brothers, Benny, Michael, Ernie, and me, we were at the after fight parties, and Randall Cunningham was a quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know if you remember him, great quarterback. Yeah. We're talking to him, and this guy comes up and says, "Hey, Randall, come here. Let me introduce you to someone." He says, "Hold on." He goes, "Let me finish talking to these guys." Bro, I never felt so important in my whole life. Before I was even Stitch, I was Jacob, But he had enough respect for us to give us his time of day until we were done. Well, he's a pastor here in Las Vegas. And I've said that story many a times. I've never met him, but I know when I do meet him, I'm going to let him know that, you know what, you just reinforce that you got to respect everybody. So I always return messages, as you can see. I always take pictures with fans, I always try to oblige them, because I always think of that one moment that, it means so much to them, more to them than it does to you. And
For sure.
so show them as much love as you can.
No, definitely. I mean, and when we were talking, you said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I forgot it's fight week," and so on and so forth. And I told you I appreciated you letting me know, because you could have stood me up. And then that's unfortunately happened with some UFC fighters. They stood us up, and I mean, we eventually were able to reschedule one. But with that being said, you said, "Hey, communication is key," and that's where a lot of people lack these days, is communication.
That's number one, and that's something I learned from RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company. I said, hey, look, if one of your accounts calls and you can't make it, call them and let them know. Listen, I'll be there tomorrow. But at least communicate, bro. That's number one in anything. Is to get up there and keep those messages current and communicate.
For sure. No, and to like speak on what you were talking about, that gentleman that was a negative experience, and also you had a positive experience with somebody. We have grown up as a Mariners fan, Seahawks fan. We have two prominent players at one time, Seahawks and Mariners. I'm sure you probably have an idea, but if you follow those sports, but the prominent Mariners player actually stopped one time when a kid asked for an autograph, and he said, "Hey, you got money on you?" and was trying to charge a kid $25 for an autograph.
Wow, that's a shame on him, because he don't need the money, number one.
Exactly.
And now you're bringing this negative story out about him.
Exactly. So, I won't mention the names. I'm sure a lot of people could put two and two together. Yeah.
But for people to think that they're higher than somebody else because they're in a better position or in a different position, that's not right.
Yeah.
You gotta treat people. You never forget where you come from, man. And just like the Creed 3 movie, right? Mm-hmm. So I bought 50 tickets, and I went home to my little town of Granada, and my special guests were the people I grew up with in the migrant camp, and they're all my age now. We all grew up together, and then there was like 20 of them, and then the rest of them were friends and family that I brought in, so we went to go see the movie together. But I did an interview there, and the words came out. I don't know why, how, but I said, you have to go back and water your roots, because without roots, the tree is not going to grow, right? I don't know where that came from, but in reality, that's the truth. You can't forget where you come from.
Exactly. And then this other player played for the Seahawks, and just unfortunately, his attitude from rookie year coming into the league to the final days with the team, just bad energies. My buddy has a high functioning autism. He's kind of like on the spectrum, and he's energetic, man. He's just all over the place, and hyping the players up every game. And this guy told him, he's like, dude, he's like, I'm done talking to you. Can you like leave? And just every situation, like because my girlfriend even worked at the school where his kids went, in same energies. He just thought he was better than everybody. And
that's a shame. Working with, I can see that. I understand that. I remember there's one Super Hall of Famer for the New York Yankees. I was at the UFC and at the MGM and at Mandalay Bay here in Las Vegas. And I'm in the back, and he's there, and I go to shake his hand, and he's not making eye contact. I said, no. We always shake hands. We always make contact. But he was like a little butt. I said, you know what? Never going to be like that. Never going to be like these guys. There's no need for that. Especially where you come from.
Exactly.
To go out there and disrespect somebody because you think that you're at a higher level than them.
Exactly. Without the fans, unfortunately, those people won't be anything,
No, exactly.
It's starting to show. So, yeah. Now, I mean, we've talked about Cutman and things like that, which we'll probably dive in a little bit deeper, shortly. But you've started movies, which is awesome. We actually just sat down and watched Creed 3 again. And I told my girlfriend, I'm like, that's Stitch right there. That's the gentleman that I'm going to be interviewing. She's like, that's him? Like, he's been in other movies? And I'm like, yeah, he's been in all the Creed movies. I mean, you've been in movies since, what, 1999, right?
Well, I don't know how long it's been. but I've been like 7 movies that I tell about. There's a couple,
Uh,
one independent with Edward James Olmos and Anderson Silva that I just did it because it was Edward James Olmos and Anderson Silva, right?
yeah.
And I played a small role as a cutman in the movie,
Mhm.
and then there was one with Ving Rhames and Wesley Snipes called Undisputed.
Yep.
And I was a prisoner in that one, so I don't tell people about those two. But anyway, yeah, I did. The first one I did was with Woody Harrelson and Antonio Banderas. Great stars.
Uh,
Played to the bone. And then I did Ocean's 11
yep.
when Vladimir Klitschko fought Lennox Lewis when they're
Mhm.
robbing the casino. And shortly after that, I worked with Vladimir Klitschko for 8 years.
Yep.
And then I did that one, and then I did Balboa when Rocky
Mhm.
fought his last fight. I was in Antonio Tarver's corner, the Mason the Line Dixon, but
Yep.
nonetheless got to do one with Rocky, right? And then I
Exactly.
did one with Kevin James and Salma Hayek and Henry Winkler, Boss Root, and all these.
Yep.
Here Comes the
Here
Boom,
comes the boom. Yep.
MMA movie, and then Creed 1, Creed 2, and Creed 3. And now they're working on Creed 4.
Are they really?
Yeah. So I've been real blessed, man.
Oh, okay.
I'm the farthest thing from being an actor,
Mhm.
but it's easier to play myself. And Michael told me on the second one because I was telling him how proud I was of him. Because every day I wrapped his hands, just him and I, and how proud I
That's
was of
awesome.
him. And Ryan Coogler and Tessa Thompson and Steve Cappell that was directing Creed 2. And he
Mhm.
looks at me and says, Stitch, he goes, I'm directing Creed 3, and you're with me as long as you want. So I'm part of the Creed family.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's impressive.
We interviewed some of the guys from Michael B. Jordan's first ever movie. You ever see Hardball?
I never did. No.
Oh man, it's such a good movie. It's about some inner city kids in Chicago playing baseball. So you might enjoy it. But
Huh.
Michael B. Jordan was in it as a kid. Keanu Reeves was their baseball coach. But we interviewed them. We actually made friendships with a couple of those guys and whatnot. But they're like, man, we would love to get a reunion, with the Hardball guys and just, But Mike's pretty big right now, handling a lot of things. So
Yeah, he's a big superstar, bro. And
he is.
the thing about it is, I was telling you earlier that they're filming a documentary on my life.
Mhm.
Michael came forward, and he gave these guys like a 30-minute interview, and they
Nice.
sent me some of the clips, and and one of them, I'll kind of give you the message on that. He
Uh-huh.
says, yeah, he goes, Stitch is wrapping my hands, and all of a sudden he says, Michael, do you know my real name? And this is the third movie we're in, right? So
Uh-huh.
he said, yeah, Stitch. He goes, no, 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 no. I said, do you know my real name? And he says, no, I don't. He goes, hey, anybody know Stitch's real name? Nobody did, right? I said, what's Jacob? Jacob, nah, that's not you, man. You're Stitch. So that was him, giving me stuff like that. And I don't know what else he said, but I know there's some strong, strong messages that he relayed. So, just to be part of his life is phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I definitely can't wait to watch that documentary
Yeah.
and whatnot. I mean, it's going to be awesome. I'm definitely going to pick up the book now. I didn't know you had a book, so we'll
Yeah.
drop that down in the description too for
Yeah,
everybody
and,
to.
and that just happens, hey Adam. It's
Mm,
during that era when Matt Hughes and Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell and Randy were all having books written on them, right?
mhm.
The guy that wrote Matt Hughes's book called my wife and I and invited us to dinner and talked about writing a book and all that. And I'm the kind of guy, you want to do it, let's do it. If let's do it.
Mhm.
But he never came through. And then this guy Zach Robinson, he's a teacher in Germany for the military kids, and he's from Oklahoma originally. He contacted me and says he was a big fan and would love to do a book on me. And I said, well, let's do it. Well, it just happened I was going to be in Germany 2 weeks later, just by the grace of God, right? And so I met him. He came. He lived like 30 minutes away from where Klitschko was fighting. So I met him. We shook hands. He wrote the book From the Fields to the Garden. It became a top seller. So that's the way it is. And then same thing with this documentary. I've had a
Mhm.
couple of people that, has started off with, the good intentions. Well, these people came through and they're doing a tremendous job. So they're doing close to the editing now. And but we got Tyson Fury, we got Shane Mosley Jr. and his wife that gave us a real good testimony. Sean Porter, Javier Mendez, Cain Velasquez, and they're asking about Cain Velasquez. I said,
Yeah.
no, I'm keeping him in there, because he went out of his way to do an interview for me. He went from where he lives at to AKA where Javier Mendez is going. It's a little bit of a drive, but he says, yeah, I'll be glad to. So, and then went back home and the guys filmed guys I grew up with, family, and they had drones for the fields. Oh, it's gonna be bad,
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Just the stuff we got in New York is it's called From the Fields to the Garden. So when I signed with these guys, a week later I get a call that Triple G is fighting, of all places, Madison Square Garden. So that was a blessing because that was the finale of the film, right? And so I called them and they adjusted their budgets. Well, the Zone and the Garden and Triple G gave these guys all access. So everything we needed from the Garden we got. And then
That's awesome.
COVID kicked in and put us on hold. And then first guy we interviewed again was Tyson Fury when we started again. But it's a good piece of documentary.
It's gonna be one to watch for sure. I can't wait to watch it. I'm gonna sit my girlfriend down and be like, listen, this is why I messaged you, because obviously huge background, so
yeah, it's a mind blower. I mean, I got a story that blows my mind every day. I said, well, shit, why me? But then I've come to realize that it had to happen to somebody, right? Moments like this happen, right? It had to happen to somebody, and I just happen to be one of those somebodies, right? So I understand, and I always try to share love, man, and bring people on board. I brought the referees in the movies, and the cut man for Drago, brought him as good, but he's a real cut man, and I brought him because he looked Russian, right? So I brought him as Drago's cut man, and just other people, and just there's a lot of room on top, and why not?
For sure. It's you shared some like news coming up for you and things like that. I'm going to share with you. We actually got Tony Weeks coming on next week, so that's going to be fun to chat with him. And I mean he's big in the boxing world, obviously, with the reffing and man, some of the crazy fights he's ref for. And I'm sure were you on the Badou Jack fight with that cut? Were you involved with that?
I came in. They brought me in after that fight.
Oh, really?
Because there should have been different circumstances the way it was handled. I would have stopped the fight early because I know it happened. I worked on that cut Forrest Griffith when he fought Shogun, that big vein we have.
Yeah,
you fought that vein, it's going to bleed like a pig, right? So it's inevitable. And
it messes with your vision, right?
Everything. Yeah. Jay Haram, when he took a knee from Jonathan Goulet, he had blood from the top of the head to the bottom. And but same thing with Badou Jack, is they should have stopped it because it was a bad cut. And I mean, Badou's going like this and shaking blood out of his face. It's just crimson. And they should have let it go to the scorecards because then there's a chance for a rematch because of what happened. Well, he lost on points and the chances of a rematch were gone. And this was for number one contender. So they brought me in right after that.
Wow. Yeah, no, that was a.
But Tony Weeks, so when you talk to Tony, call him Kilo, right? Kilo. There's a story because we're watching Tony give instructions, and his Spanish is aquí no, it's not here, below the belt, and my wife saying, is he saying Kilo? So Tony's a good friend, right? So I said, Tony, so I call him Kilo, we call him Kilo. It's hey, how come they call you Kilo? So my wife says, is he saying Kilo? I said, no, aquí no. Aquí no. So we'll bring that up to him, man. They'll give him a little laugh. Yeah.
Okay. For sure. No, I'm going to remember that.
Yeah, I worked a lot of fights with him. We went to Kazakhstan together, worked fights up there, and just, he's international.
Yeah. What's your favorite city that you've been to, or favorite place for a fight? Let's say in states and out of states.
Yeah, Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
In Brazil was awesome. The climate, the atmosphere, the people, the food. It's my kind of place, man. Just kind of keep it on cruise control, right? Stateside, I don't know. It's funny because people think we travel all over the world, right? But they think it's all glamorous and all that. And but in reality, when we check into the hotel, we walk we got like a 6-block radius, and we don't do much, right? But you look for a good restaurant, maybe some kind of entertainment, but not really, So so it's tough to really. But yeah, New Orleans, I like Southern cooking. New Orleans, that's always a good place.
Okay. Yeah, we lived about 10 minutes away from Shreveport because my stepdad was in the military. So I mean, I know Louisiana a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We used to do fights in Biloxi, right? And,
Okay.
so I would land in New Orleans, and then they would pick me up and drive to Biloxi. But Waffle Houses, I think I counted like 11 Waffle
That's a
Houses,
lot.
all
There's
the
a
way
lot.
from New Orleans to Biloxi. Yeah, that's what I remember about that.
Have you been to Seattle? That's where we're from, as you
Yes.
could probably see right here on our
Yeah.
little thing there. You've been to Seattle.
Yeah.
They did some UFC fights here back when we had Key Arena.
Yeah, we did some UFC fights there, and yeah, I love Seattle. In fact, my wife's talking about, we ought to go to Seattle, and just to get away, right? So that's one of the destinations. And my nephew lived up there for a little bit, and he moved. Finally got a job in Guam, so he's up there right now. But yeah,
nice.
I've been there a couple of times. I love it.
Hopefully, we will run into you if you come out here. But
yeah,
I used to do event security back in the day, and I think the first ever UFC fight we had was at Key Arena in 2012, and it was Nogueira and Phil Davis as the main event.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because I was sitting ringside inside the octagon where the railing and stuff was, and we seen all the referees, and Herb Dean was sitting right next to me. At one point, I don't know what happened, but all the seats got filled and he took my seat. So I'm like, I just say, hey, man. Yeah, so he ended up moving. But it was cool. I'm a bigger guy, as you can see, and I was probably a lot smaller at that time. But they were like, we're going to have you walk the fighters to the ring. But then they looked and like, there's a chance that these guys may run to the ring. Yeah. And they're like, let's put you at ringside. So it was cool.
Yeah.
I got to do that. But yeah, that was fun. I've been to a couple of fights myself. But yeah, no, it's all a fun experience.
Yeah, they're great events, man. Just, and for me to do this every week, those type of situations, it's not a bad job.
For sure. Have you been to Bruce Lee's gravesite when you've been out here? No. I know you said Bruce Lee is like one of your main inspirations.
We all follow Bruce Lee, right? Exactly. Yeah. And his son Brandon's there too, right?
Exactly. You might have to make that a point to yourself to go check that out.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I know friends that have been to Seattle have gone there, and just to give him some support because of him. He's the one that got me, just through his words and mission. He's the one that got me involved in doing what I do.
Yeah, for sure. And I've never been there, actually, believe it or not. I've lived here pretty much all my life and just never been there.
That's the way people are. Like in San Diego, you don't go to Mexico. You don't go to TJ. It just happens. In Vegas, I've been here going on 20. The only time I go to the casinos or the strip is for fights, and then after the fights, I come home. So I
go home.
Yeah. More for the tourists.
Yeah. So when it comes to boxing, you've worked with Andre Ward, who also co-starred in Creed with you, right? Yeah. Which, I mean, that's crazy, right? So there's his dad, right? His dad was a boxer too?
I don't know. His dad died when he was like 46 years old. He might have been a boxer.
Oh, okay.
I know his brother was a boxer also, an amateur boxer. And Andre's the only one that took that turn. And I guess evidently they have a documentary on his life that they're showing on Showtime coming up.
Oh, man. Yeah. There's a lot that I need to get caught up on.
Yeah.
So you've worked with him. You guys even worked in the movies together. Tyson Fury, obviously, huge name in the boxing world right now. And then obviously the Klitschko brothers, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any fun stories you want to share with me about that? I know you get asked questions all the time about these guys.
But the Klitschkos, I got to give them major props all the time because I don't know if you're aware, but they're right in the middle of a war with Russia, and Vitaly is the mayor of Kiev, and Vladimir is the face of the country that he does a lot of the speaking for him and all that. And so the top three guys are really Zelensky, the president, Vitaly Klitschko, and Vladimir Klitschko. So when I did the movie Creed, Michael and them would always come and ask me for my opinions, right?
Mhm.
Authenticity, and they asked about who should give away the WBC belt, right? And I explained to them that it was Jose Suleiman from Mexico City and so, and he passed away. His son Mauricio is the president now. So I saw Mauricio. So we found a guy, a Mexican guy, in the for the extras to give the belt away to keep it within the tradition, right?
Okay.
But I told Mauricio there when Earl Spence fought Ugas in Dallas, I saw Mauricio there, and he said, "Well, let's take a picture and let's send it to the brothers." I'm gonna let you listen to what Vladimir sent me,
Okay.
and kind of give you the type of idea of how kind of relationship I have with these guys. Here we go.
My two favorite men, especially Stitch, with whom I spent so much time talking, and he actually saved my career on a lot of different stages. If Stitch wouldn't be in my corner, I would not make the record of 12 years being a champion. So that's so great to see you both, and Stitch is the man.
It's crazy, huh?
That's crazy.
And but there's a story to that. Yeah, so I have stories with all these guys. But Vladimir, when he fought Anthony Joshua, his last fight, I I didn't see Vladimir and Vitaly till Friday at the weigh-ins because my daughter Carla got married on Wednesday at Crete, and then I flew in Thursday night, and they were staying in like apartments, and I was staying at the hotel. And so I see him at the weigh-ins, and we talk about the game, what you could been just talk about what we're gonna do and all that. And finally, at the end, I put my hand on Vladimir and I say, "Look, don't worry about nothing tomorrow. I'm gonna take care of you like you're my son." And I leave because I know the night before they can't sleep. And so here we are in front of 150,000 or 90,000 British fans, and loud, loud, loud is buzzing. Millions of people watching all over the world, and Michael Buffer's getting ready to do the announcements, and I'm putting the final Vaseline on Vladimir. We're like this far apart, and he says, "You could call me son." Ah, bro, that got to me because I know it got to him. Right. And to this day, he considers it the best fight ever of his career. But he calls me and, "Hey, Daddy," But then months later, I see him in Germany, and very simply, I said, "Vladimir, that moment, why?" He says, "Stitch, there's very few people I trust in my life. You are one of them." And it's the last time we spoke.
Wow.
It's crazy, huh?
That is crazy. Yeah. That's insane.
It's insane, yeah. But those are the moments, like I tell these guys, everybody, these guys are all modern day gladiators. I don't care how big you are, they're all modern day gladiators, but they're all babies. And my job is to take care of the baby, and they know that.
And they trust you. I mean, they all trust you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean that's
what
a
makes
big
it
deal.
special. That's where those stories are at, Adam. I sit back and just the love that these guys give me, and I mean Tyson Fury kissed me, "I love you, thanks for taking, keeping nice on me." Simple things like that. Because I told him I was going to keep ice on him every round. And I wasn't going to wait till he started swallowing. I was going to do a lot of preventive maintenance, and he kept that in his head. And he's in his shorts, just ready to take a shower after the fight with Deontay Wilder. And I'm saying goodbye, and he gives me a kiss and says, "Thank you for keeping ice on me. I love you."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Moments, bro. Yeah.
And Tyson, I mean, he looks like a mean guy, right? Like just the look in his face, but he seems like, from everything you're saying, like a kind-hearted guy.
No, there's Tyson Fury, not Mike Tyson now.
Yeah.
This Tyson Fury. No, Tyson Fury like.
Oh, you're talking about Tyson.
Tyson Fury, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mike Tyson's a different person. Entirely different personality-wise. Yeah. Two different guys whatsoever. And but yeah, this was Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
When I worked with him, but yeah, with Mike Tyson, I got a chance to do pads for him. I always I was a trainer before I was a cutman. So when I moved to Vegas, I could always do pads, pump, and I did that just to break sweat, right? So they called me to do pads for Mike Tyson. I did a couple of weeks of work with him, and so I had that relationship with him. Got to break a little bit of sweat with him and all that. So, and then like I say, he came forward for this documentary, and gave me some strong words of wisdom. And, I mean, it blows my mind how everybody's come forward and let me see if you could see if I can find. Anyway, so things have been good, bro.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And Tyson, I mean, not Tyson Fury, but Mike Tyson. That dude's an intelligent guy, man. I mean, he's very smart.
In this documentary, he's quoting Nietzsche. Now, who do you know? What boxer? Seriously, what boxer do you know has quoted Nietzsche? Right? Nietzsche says, you know, when you turn into a monster, so and so, and this and that, and it's yeah. So let me see if I could. Here's a little quote from the documentary that Mike Tyson did. Let me see if you could hear it. Let me see here. Anyway, yeah. So he was really going to love what he said. Anyway, here we go. Okay, here we go.
This is what fighters do. We fight guys like me, KOSwell, Oscar De La Hoya. We take a percentage, they automatically take a percentage. Boom. But it's not necessarily for us. Not for us. For the less frustrated guys, we're not going to beat that stuff. We look pretty good now. Oscar did, he got for the other guys. We got guys to take care of us, but they're not forced to have a big time executive to take care of us and watch them like we do. So we should take a percentage of our money for those guys.
Very simple. The question was asked is what should we do to help these guys have some kind of pension plan, some kind of insurance? You know, let's say you break your hand in the gym and you don't have insurance. Well, there should be a fund or, you know, whether it's the ABC, Association of Boxing Commission, but there should be an account where we'll say, you know what, we'll take care of your broken hand. We'll pay for the medical bills. There should be something like that. And then when Mike says, guys like us are making all this money, throw some of this money towards them. Very simple.
Exactly.
Very simple.
Yeah. So let me ask you, and I wanna ask, but again, you could say, hey, I don't have no comment or nothing. But Jake Paul, you follow him, right? Obviously, he's, you know, people all knew him from being on Disney Channel and YouTube and things like that. But, you know, he came out, hey, Dana, you know, put your best guy or whatever against me. And if I win, you pay your fighters equally or get them health insurance, make sure your guys are taken care of. And I think Jake is working with, I forget what it is, but it's like something to get fighters basically taken care of. And that's exactly what you're kind of talking about.
Yeah. We've touched bases, you know, and, you know, he's a good voice, right? And that's what you need. And matter of fact, I'm going to work on getting this documentary to him just to let him know, you know, that everything that whatever questions everybody needs to ask, I already asked, and I got solutions for him, right? All we got to do is implement the programs. And, you know, that's a big change. So, yeah, no, props to Jake, man. You know, that he sees that there's an issue, not only in boxing, I mean, MMA, but it's been happening in boxing for years and years and years.
Exactly.
You know? And something has to be changed. There has to be a governing body of someone or a representation group to take care of these fighters. Let's say, you know, you want legal advice on a contract. You know, we call this number, you know, for so-and-so and ask them your questions and they'll give you legal advice. Simple things, right? Let's say you get hurt, you know, and you can't continue. Well, let them pay for your stitches but very simple, but you got to create. Mark Ratner now, that's the vice president for the UFC, who was the head of the athletic commission in Nevada. Great man. Very simply, he says the money comes from the pay-per-views. So every time there's a pay-per-view, he says 15, 20, 25 cents. Put it into this pot and let this pot grow so that we can take care of these fighters. Very simple. It has to be done, bro. You know, we're all independent contractors. These fighters are. That's why, you know, a union, and it's all in the word union, right? And you could call it an association. They have the same thing. But yeah. Slowly but surely something's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's that one boxer, I forget his name, but he was like, I think 21. I could be wrong about the age, but he was boxing and then went into that coma, you know, Hispanic kid, right? And I mean, he's probably the one working for his family, make sure they're taken care of. And at the end of the day, now he's never going to have a family. He'll probably never have he'll never have a normal life. There's no probably about it. And
no, it's a hurt business. In this documentary, Aiden Mustafa Muhammad, his quote is, the ultimate goal of a fighter is to render his opponent unconscious. And that's a knockout, right? He's talking about the best victory for a fighter is a knockout. But in the knockout, this fighter is receiving some kind of damage. It might not happen right now, but long-term damage.
For sure.
And those are things that we got to see how we take care of. Dr. Bernick here in Nevada is doing a lot of research with CTE. My daughter Carla and the group that she's working with, Royce Gracie and this guy Eric, have implemented a CTE test for the commissions. So when you apply for your license, it's a true or false test on CTE. And it's not to flunk, it's to be aware of the signs. Simple question like, does sparring in the gym cause CTE? True or false? Well, yeah, it does. Contact, drugs and alcohol. Yeah. Dehydration, So those are questions that they brought up, that they have their own little network of people working on that. And now they also, with the ABC, which is the Association of Boxing Commission that governs all the boxing in the United States, now for the first time, they've implemented where they're going to have 10 retired boxers as part of their group when it comes to making decisions for fighters. And it should have been like that a long time ago. So there's a slow movement going on. I'd like to hear a little bit more from Jake, and because he's like the match that will start things going.
For sure.
So maybe I'll do a follow-up with him as I get off the phone.
There you go. That'd be awesome. I mean, it definitely, I think you guys would be two of the best names to.
I agree. No, 100%, bro. I agree. When it comes to, and see, that's one of the things on the business marketing, I understand marketing. And when it comes to that, Jake's such a big name with a major following, but he's a strong voice for the fighters. And he's an athlete. People ask me, well, what do you think about Jake Paul? I said, man, I thought him and Logan Paul are great athletes. Anybody that wrestles are good athletes. And I know because my school of kickboxing, guys who were wrestlers turned into be good kickboxers. So when I found out that they were wrestlers, I knew right off the bat that they were athletes.
Yeah, now they started growing on me. They grew on me for sure.
And they're good guys. I worked with KSI against Logan Paul. I've worked with Jake Paul, and I know them. I've seen them all the time, and they're actually good people. They're good people, and they've done a lot for really making money for these guys that are fighting them. And I applaud.
That's great.
Of course, the end of the game is making money and not getting hurt.
Exactly. And people think like, oh, at first I was skeptical about the boxing career and things like that, just like everybody else was, right? A lot of people were, but, after he started coming out, hey, Dana, pay your guys, if I try to make those agreements, I mean, that's really what got me set. It was like, okay, this dude's not looking for just making money, he's actually giving back. So,
well, that's the point. Yeah. And then he has a voice to that. I ran into my friend Down House. That's one of the primary cutmen for the UFC. He was the third guy to come in when we first started, right? And I ran into him at Lake Las Vegas, him and his wife and his mother-in-law, and we're talking. And I say, hey, man, have you guys gotten any increases of pay yet? And this 8 years later, right? He goes, no, still this and that. So his wife says, yeah, but he can't say anything. I said, well, I can. So she's, well, can I take a picture? Can you put it on? I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I did. I met my old friend down the house. And, it's a shame that, they're not getting paid nothing. I thought he was his friend. Dana was his friend and this and that. But it's a shame that the ring girls get paid more than the cutmen,
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that kind of went out. And Mark Ratner, that's the vice president of the athletic committee or UFC now, he stopped me at a fight and asked me about that. And I said, yeah, they haven't got paid, You
guys are important, man. You guys are, if those guys aren't taken care of.
What would you, as a fighter, what would you rather have, a cutman or a ring girl?
Yeah. Yeah. No, hands down a cutman for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame.
Yeah. So I want to ask some questions about Cutman. I mean, you've been on some pretty big fights, seen some nasty cuts and things like that. What's the worst cut that you've seen? I mean, I have watched many fights myself, and my girlfriend, because like I said, she's a nurse, right? And so she sees some gnarly things at work. So she sees them too. And she's like, man, that just looks bad. You know, like you got dudes with their eyebrows split open and things like that.
Seen them all, man. Marvin Eastman, that's a good one when he fought Vitor Belfort. With a big old gash like this. Brock Lesnar, we fought King Velasquez, a big old gash there. You can see the bone, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen them all, man. You know, top of the head, big old cuts, and but like I say, the big ones here, those are the tough ones. You know, so Robbie Lawler, when he split his lip when he fought Rory McDonald, and my daughter says that he goes, she just the other day she sent a message. He goes, Dad, the Rory McDonald Robbie Lawler fight is being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and as one of the great fights, right? And that was, I think, the last big fight I worked. I did the reality show the day after, but the last big fight was Robbie Lawler, and she said, but that they're showing you everywhere because they can't, you know. So because Robbie, the fight's over, I go to Robbie and he spits out blood, you know. And then I start working on it, so I'm there, and then they even take me, and you can see Stitch on the back of my card. So you know, I'm part of their history. So, but Robbie Lawler, that was good. Chuck Liddell had a big one when he fought. I can't remember who he fought, but I literally put the towel, gave him the towel, and said, "Look, go back to the dressing room, just hold it," you know. And so I've seen big ones, broken bones, you know. That hurts the most, you know. Corey Hill, one of the earlier guys, he fought. I forgot his name. Anyway, he throws a kick and breaks his leg, and his foot's like this, and the leg's like this, right? I mean, the foot's like this. And I'm looking at it, and man, he's in pain, and I get down on my knees, and I put his head and his shoulders on my thighs, and I'm holding him, and he's in pain, and this and that, and he's asking, hey, go find my father, and he's in a lot of pain, and he's Stitch, what happened? And I said, man, you broke your leg, man. Go ahead and scream all you want, you know. So I'm holding him, and then they shoot him up with morphine, and they put him on the stretcher, and his final words to me were, Stitch. He fought Dale Hart. Stitch, I almost had him. I said, wow, what a warrior, man. This guy's going out with a broken leg, literally a compound fracture, and he's telling me that he almost had Dale Hart. So, it's crazy. It's crazy, you know.
Yeah. When I worked at UFC event, man, I'm telling you, I seen guys walking by with knots on their head and stuff. Like I see it on TV, but like when you see it in person, it's a whole different ball game. That's for sure.
Oh, it's heartbreaking, man, just to see these guys, and not only that, but even the girl fighters, you know. And I've always asked them. I say, you know, let's say a girl's from England, you know, and she's all banged up like that. Well, her and her trainer are flying back home, right? So I'm wondering what people were thinking when they see this guy, man, you know. Yeah. So she had to wear a UFC fighter or MMA fighter, you know. Yeah. But I've always asked them that, and they said people look.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I'm sure they got a lot of people staring at them.
Yeah, of course. Unless you're walking with a championship belt, you know, then it's a little bit more acceptable.
Yeah. I think I know which one you're talking about. She had like her face was like pretty much swollen, and she had like knots.
No, there's all kinds. It happens all the time, man. You know. Gotcha. I do so many fights, you know, that just people are gonna get bruised up.
Yeah. So what's in the mixture like that you guys use? I've always heard it's like glue and Vaseline. Because I don't think Vaseline's just holding it shut, is it?
What are you talking about? The cuts?
Yeah, for like the cuts and stuff when you guys are.
That's a good question because you know there's so many myths on what's going on in what we do, and like I said, because nobody's teaching us how to do it the proper way. We just you learn by example, right? But the adrenaline chloride, the swab that we use, you know, that goes on the cut. Well, we dip it into adrenaline chloride 1/1000. It's a liquid medication that you get through prescription. But when you see me working on a cut, I always squeeze it to take the blood out of those little vessels. And then when I put the swab up there, it absorbs into the vessels, and it's a vessel constrictor, so it closes up the vessel.
Oh,
So if you have a cut man that tells you, and that's why I always tell these young fighters, I said, look, if your cut man puts a swab in his mouth or he puts it in his ear, get another cut man. That's so always, that's because he's doing that because he saw other people doing it, whether it's right or wrong. But also ask him what the function is of the adrenaline chloride 1000. What's the mechanical function? What does it do? And you ask Cutman, and ask Tony Weeks, and he'll probably say, "Oh, it's a coagulant." And well, no, it's not a coagulant. And Tony's not supposed to know to say that.
yeah.
But it's not a coagulant. A coagulant is when there's other products that coagulate the blood, avatine and thrombin, but I don't like them because once you hit it, it takes the clot with it. But the adrenaline chloride 1000 is a vessel constrictor. So little education there, bro.
Oh no, for sure. No, because I see you guys doing it all the time. You know what I mean? It's like, what are they doing? Like, what are they using? So on and so forth. So, and you guys are putting Vaseline back over? Is that
I'll mix the adrenaline chloride with a Vaseline, and in doing that, Vaseline doesn't absorb or accept liquid, So what you do is you just whip it till you create little bubbles, and that houses the adrenaline chloride 1000. So when you put it on the cut and you spread it, there's adrenaline that's still within there. That whatever little leak you have, then hopefully it'll close it up.
And then the Vaseline before the fights, when you guys put that on, is that to like avoid?
That's it. Yeah, I laughed about it the other day. In theory, that is so the guys don't get cut, right? Gotcha. But if that was the case, I wouldn't have a job.
True.
It might help, to some extent, but if you take a direct blow, nothing's going to happen.
Exactly. There's nothing stopping that.
Yeah.
So what are you whispering in the guys' ears when they come out, like when you're putting everything on them and things like that?
It depends. Depends on who it is, and But a lot of times when they come up to me, because it's so loud, says, close your eyes and get Vaseline. Don't worry about nothing. I'm gonna take care of you like you're my son, indeed. And little words of encouragement. And it's funny that you bring that up because people bring that up. What do you tell these guys? But it's just, and keep in mind, you're right. My job is to take care of them. So if you kind of let them know that you got their back as they're stepping into that ring, then you're doing your job. So
yeah. No, and I think that's also where a lot of that trust comes in, right?
100%.
They're working with you pretty much, do it all. Do you ever do like any of like the camps with them? I'm sure some dudes get banged up and things like that.
I did Caleb Plant. I did that only because he's in Vegas, but normally I don't. Usually, I'm booked like all kinds of weeks, right? But with Caleb, I did it more because he's a friend, and then he's in town, and for the most part, he ain't got nothing to do until it's fight time, right?
Yeah. So
I just go over there and then wrap his hands and just make it part of the journey.
There you go. Okay. So we talked about it pretty much, but you said guys that are getting like broken legs, like Hill and things like that. How about guys getting knocked out? You said there's guys that have tensed up and things like that, but in most cases, you're probably one of the first people they see, right? When they wake up, you're over there making sure they're okay, things like that.
Yeah. There's Bisbing when he fought Dan Henderson. He got knocked out cold, right?
Oh yeah.
Even Fedor, when he got knocked out. These guys they're so confused and so many things are going through their head, right? Like Bisbing, what happened? I said, well, Mike, you got knocked out. And they asked like 3 times, what happened? I said, well, Mike, you got knocked out. What happened? I said, Mike, look at me. You make this eye contact. Look, you got knocked out. And then, but their brain has to reboot in a sense. Like Coca, when he got knocked out, and finally his body started to download and he relaxed. You got to, nature's great, man. The body's super, but you got to take care of it. And the same thing with Fedor when he got knocked out. I didn't know he got knocked out. Drago when he fought Matt Brown, Pete Sells. Matt beat the crap out of him, and he's arguing with the referee and he's arguing with the doctor. No, I'm okay. And I come up to him. I said, Drago, look at me. You got knocked out. He looks. He goes, Stitch, I believe. So, he was fighting with the doctor and the referee, saying that he was okay. But once I went in there to let him know, that he was okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember that fight, Henderson and Bisping, and man, that was cold. That was definitely a hard hit.
And that's a good point. There's that move, that ground and pound going down. I think that should be banned.
Yeah. That could have been bad. It could have been bad for sure.
Yeah, for long term. Well, even the ground and pound when the guys, when you knock somebody down and he's out, and to go over there and pummel them, I think that needs to be rewritten. Those rules need to be rewritten. He's out,
For sure.
But that's what they're doing now.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't care how much bad blood those two had. There just should have been no reason for that, And
no, I agree. Yeah,
it happened.
No, I agree, 100%. Yeah, but I understand.
Yeah. So over time, I mean, you've perfected your craft. Was there ever like a time where you were working on a cut, even first starting out doing all of this, that you were, you just didn't have someone totally prepared and it maybe became a little worse, or,
No, I've been pretty fortunate, I've been pretty fortunate, to where I've been able to, if not stop the cut, definitely stop the fight and protect the fighter, right? Some cuts you just go beyond your capabilities of whether it's going to benefit the fighter or not. Vladimir Klitschko, when he fought his first fight coming back after losing his world title, my first fight with him, when he lost his world title to Layman Brewster, on his first fight back, he fought DeVille Williamson here at Caesars Outdoor, and Vladimir got that big cut. But I knew what had happened he had won the first 3 rounds. Not great, but he had won them, right? I always try to score the fight as I go. And on the 4th round, he gets dropped, So he's still ahead by 1 round in my calculations. Well, in the 5th round, he gets an unintentional headbutt. And I've worked on those with Forrest, like I said, and I've worked on them, but percentage-wise, his best chance of winning was right then and there. So when he sits down, Emmanuel's to his left and Vitaly's to his right. So I whispered to Vitaly and Vladimir, I said, look, you got a bad cut. I'm going to have the doctor stop. You're winning the fight. I'm going to have the doctor stop the fight. So when the doctor came, and Dr. Goodman, and I've worked with her many, many times in the UFC, she said, Stitch, what do you think? I go like this. I open up the cut, and I said, it's pretty bad. Well, she stopped the fight, went to the scorecards. He ended up winning the fight and became champion again. That's why he was saying, I would have been champion for, 12 years. Well, 8 of those 12 years, I was with him. And, so you got to know the game and see how far, you don't want to. So anyway, in that, the doctor calls the next day, and she says, I just spoke to the plastic surgeon. I called Vladimir and Emmanuel Stewart, and the doctor says it was a good thing you stopped the cut when you did, because it was close to a optical nerve, and they would have created double vision. So those are the things you got to look at.
Yeah. So have you ever had a fighter thank you for stopping a fight?
The Andre Duran, when he fought Jose Esquerigi at the MGM in Washington, D.C., I think.
Okay.
He was taking the shots that are penetrating. It would hit you here. It would come out here. They're just solid shots, right? And he comes into the corner, and I see the doctors, and they're talking amongst each other. And I'm kind of evaluating what they're talking about, that maybe we should stop the fight type of thing. So when Andre comes to me during the break, I'm working on him, and I said, look, the doctors are thinking of stopping the fight. Do you want to continue? And very small, he goes like this, small. Boom, I stopped the fight. And Virgil Hunter was a trainer, and his Andre's grandfather was the second. No, he's okay. One more round. I said, no. Once he said no, that was it, right? And stopped the fight. And well, the next day, 8 o'clock in the morning, him and his wife called me, and they thanked me for stopping the fight. And as Andre says, he goes, I just didn't have nothing in me, you know. So, but those type of shots, like I told him, those type of shots, I consider will give you long-term damage, not right now, then and there, but long-term damage. Chuck Liddell, when he used to punch guys, would give them long-term damage. Those are Chuck Liddell punches. He hit super hard.
Yeah, no, definitely. Chuck was a beast for sure. Have you ever called a fight and never and it probably shouldn't have stopped?
Say it again.
Have you ever called a fight where you probably regretted it? It was like, hold on, maybe this fighter could have still fought.
No.
Okay.
No, you know, I'll try to let the guys go as much as possible. Caleb Plant, when he fought Benavidez, right?
Yeah.
Breadman was thinking of stopping it. Like, I'm looking at the clock, it's like 45 seconds left in the 11th round. And I said, no, let him finish the round, right? And just out of his pride, right? Because he's not going to get no hurt no more than that. But going into the 12th round is I'm helping him get up, and he's going to the 12th round. I said, look, Breadman's thinking of stopping the fight, you know, stay off the ropes. The only thing I gave him, and it went the distance. And like I saw him at the Thursday. I saw him Thursday, and I said, you know, people booed you walking in because you were fighting Benavidez, but the heart and soul that you showed, they all cheered you as you were walking out. And so, you know, it would have been a lot different if the fight would have been stopped and under such great conditions. You know, his credibility just went up so much more as being a warrior.
Yeah.
So we did the right thing.
Gotcha. So how did you get the name Stitch if you don't do any stitching or anything like that?
Yeah,
right?
I don't do stitching. People think I do. You know, it's funny. During the days when I had my school of kickboxing, I used to work with Dennis Selection, who was the world champion at that time. Well, he fought in Vallejo, California, which we're from the Bay Area, right? At the fairgrounds, and David Rooney was a sparring partner for Dennis. So I'm working David's corner because, you know, we're part of the team. And at that time, I was making the transition into being a cutman. And the only way was to look and examine what these guys were doing, learning how to wrap hands. Will Edgington was the top cutman in Sacramento. I used to watch him, and, you know, they would try to hide it type of stuff. But anyway, Dave Rooney, in cuts, I would see trainers get the tape and cut little strips, sterile strip, and butterfly it, right? And so I did that. And Dave got a little cut, knowing now the cuts wasn't all that big, but it was a cut, right? So I got the tape and I butterflied it. And he says, I don't have to go to the hospital. You save me some stitches. I'm calling you Stitch. And that's where the name came. And it's funny because for the longest, even till now, I don't know if Dave Rooney knows how much he changed my life. Last time I had heard before that he was a fisherman in Alaska. And but then I talked to one of my fighters, my old ASK fighters, American School of Kickboxing fighters, Mike Duran. And he says David Rooney now is a sea captain on these tours around San Francisco. So next time I go to the Bay Area, I'm going to try to track him down and at least buy him dinner and let him know that he changed my name. I mean, Michael didn't even know my real name. Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, Stitch. But it happens that way. People, hey, what's your real name? What's your real name? You know?
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool because I even see your tape. Is that it says Stitch on it, and my girlfriend pointed that out to me. She's like, his tape says Stitch, and I never realized that. Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty cool that you even.
Yeah, Canelo uses my tape. Michael B. Jordan let me use my tape in the movie. You know, and that was a major plug. You know, he gave what I give to him, he gives back to me. You know. Yeah. And so yeah, and, you know, I saw my tape and my KOSwell, the KOSwell that I use is curved, right? And because let me show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. So as I was learning to be a cut man, all the end swells are flat, right? And you would put them there doing this and doing that. But to me, I was coming back from London with the UFC, and I remember I was talking to Kenny Florian, and I'm getting the water, and I'm going like this, and, you know, and it's contoured, right? I said, well, it makes so much sense because all the swelling, majority of the swelling happens here and here. So I went home and I got a clay model and I formulated
my wife calls it the KOSwell, knockout swell. And so there's it. Look, it's curved on one side, right? So you could sit in it. It's curved on one side, and then if you need, let's say, on a flat side, then you could use the flat side. So now you got both of them. You know, but,
that's crazy. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and so there's a bite at Cutman for Hire Supplies. He carries my tape. He carries this, and I help him with this. You know, get exposure out. But everything you need as a trainer or as a cut man, he has the best of the best.
There you go. So how much time do you have like to work on a cut? I personally don't know that. That's why I'm actually asking. I'm sure you've probably been asked that many times before. So.
No, not really. But it's a good question. You know, if you're real good, you can still, you know, 52, 53 seconds, right? Because you figure by the time the bell rings, you know, you get up to the stairs, you go through the ropes, the fighter, you know, so you're losing 2-3 seconds, 4 seconds, but then they give you that 10-second warning, and then you got to leave before the bell rings. So 55 seconds if you're real good and you still a second or two, but anywhere about 52 seconds. You know, I always count. You know, when the bell rings and the cut man, I'll count, see how many seconds it takes for him to actually get to the fighter and start working on him. And if you could do it, you know, under 7 seconds and below, then you've gotten to him at a good time. And let's say the bell rings and the fighter's in the opposite corner. That's where the fight ends, and he's cut. Well, I always run over there, and I'll get him, and I'll put pressure, and I'll walk him back to the corner, because that saves me 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. That saves me 4 seconds. See what I'm saying? So good question. Not everybody,
so when it comes to, go ahead.
No, so not everybody has asked that question.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm kind of curious. Is that like for UFC as well, or MMA, like MMA in general?
Yeah, you got a minute to work with, right? And that's a good cage, like the UFC that has a cage, right? So what you do is you get primary position. So you're right behind the gatekeeper. And as the bell rings, the gatekeeper goes, pulls the pin, opens the door, and you're the first one in. You know, so you communicate that with the guys you're working with, the commissioners, you know, the inspectors, the commissioners for the athletic commission. I'll let them know, let me go in first, or even the trainer, let me go in first. So there's always communications in saving time. Yeah, good question.
Yeah. So my buddy Sam and I, we actually like to watch like crowd fights on like for like MMA and boxing. Do you guys ever get distracted? Because I mean, there's so much that goes on, right? Like I'm sure you're a professional guy, but like, do people tend to get distracted by that stuff? I'm sure it happens all over in different areas.
Shakur Stevenson, we were in Newark 2 weeks ago. Shakur Stevenson fought, right? And they're doing the announcement, and I'm in the ring and, you know, got my hands over on the ropes. And 3 rows back, these guys are throwing blows, bro. They're just going, they're throwing blows. Shit, I look, you know, I've seen enough introductions. I'm there, but everybody, you could be in a great fight, and there's a fight in the audience, and people will migrate towards the fight in the audience. These guys were throwing blows. I mean, I'm talking about, I don't know what happened, but they were throwing blows. You know?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I think the last Davis fight, Meek Mill and his entourage got in a fight with somebody, and I was just like, man, I wonder if people ever get distracted by that.
Oh yeah, the fans love it, you know. Yeah. And you see guys, you know, and there's been guys you've seen they've tossed over one legend to the other, right? They get vicious, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. So one final thing here. Do you ever hear that you look like Edward James Amos? I mean, my girlfriend, she's like, he reminds me of somebody, and then I'm like, who? Like, who could he remind you of? And she's like, Edward James Amos, and I'm like,
I get that all the time, and we're friends, right? We met when the UFC. I don't know if you can see this here. Let me see here.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Yeah. So we met when he was going to do this movie with Anderson Silva, the one I was talking about, independent movie. But I wanted to meet him because he's Mexican. I'm Mexican. He's a great actor. But I'm in the back. I'm wrapping fighters' hands, and one of the UFC staff says, "Hey, Edward James almost wants to meet you." Good. I finish wrapping. I go down the hall. I turn the corner, and we look at each other like I'm looking at you, and we start laughing.
Mm.
It's the same thing, bro. So we're
Yeah.
talking and all that. He calls my mom and talks to my mother, and hey, listen, so and so, I want to get your son in the movie, and sure enough. So, but I sent him a message, and I said, it's nice when people stop me and they want my picture or autograph, and then they think I'm you. He says, well, Stitch called me. People call me Stitch all the time. So it does happen. Happens all the time. But when I was doing Creed 2, we're on break, and it's Sylvester Stallone and myself and Sylvester's friend Frank and the makeup people. And we're talking to the makeup people and just kind of chatting. And Frank is bragging about me to the makeup people. Oh, yeah, Stitch, it's a great cut, man, and this and that, and so and so. And he looks like Everything's almost. Well, man, this quick, Sylvester Stallone's like this. And he says, more like Everything's almost. And walked away. That was a cold shot. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was funny. But what a better way to get knocked out than a comment like that from Sylvester Stallone. So that was cool. Yeah. But I get it all the time.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's funny. So we'd like to end our our cast with a question, and you really pretty much answered that. What kind of advice would you give from somebody, just really trying to make it somewhere in life, doesn't matter what it is. I mean, there's people that are going through struggles every day, and I'm sure, you growing up, you dealt with a lot of that, I mean, you were born on a farm, things like that. But I mean, I'm sure you're hearing your history, your family coming from, Mexican descent. It's hard in that time, and it still is for a lot of people, that are Hispanic. Do you have any, words of advice for people that are looking to, whether it's continue education or even continue to take care of their families?
Yeah. Outside of, follow your dreams, they do come true. That's how it is. But, there's a yin and yang. There's a negative and positive. There's up and down. There's a black and white. There's going to be one of each all the time, right?
Yeah.
But the negative, you gotta go beyond that. It's going to happen, but eventually, to have a positive, you got to have a negative. So as long as you understand those fractions and understand numbers, that desire, and like we talked earlier, passion. If you have passion and not worried about dollars and cents, the success will be so much better. And the young generation, like you guys, we in the martial arts, we have a saying that when the student does better than the master, then the master has done his job. And that's the new generation, that you guys do better than your parents, because that's the way life is. And then your kids will do better than you, and you keep that cycle going. And listen, I'm nobody different than anybody out there. It's just that these opportunities have landed on my lap, and I've taken advantage of them through those moments. So follow your dreams, bro. And thanks for having me on, Adam.
For sure. No, I definitely appreciate you being on, Stitch. Like I said, I grew up watching you on UFC and whatnot. And, obviously you're still continuing it, whether it's being with another promotion to where you're at now. You never let things stop you, and you're just continuing getting the news out there.
Yeah, they're all adventures for me. And I just got a message the other day in August. They want to do 2 weeks of 5-city tours with the legendary MMA fighter, current fighter, and then another one, and then me being the host. So we would go from one city to another 5 days out of Wednesday through Sunday, and we'd go from one place to the other in a bus, like a rock and roll bus. So we would do answering questions with the audience, and then and then I told him, I said, look, even at the end, we could have a contest. I could wrap one of the fans' hands right on stage with these guys watching. So things like that are happening.
Cool.
The documentary's happening. Boxer's Nightmare. I'm gonna be getting it out there soon, and just been blessed doing the video game and all that. And yeah, so thanks for having me on, bro.
For sure, I appreciate it, and we'll be in touch. I hope.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care.
All right. Goodbye.